Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. Suraj kya hua bhai aapka? It's beautiful to be together with you all. We'll start as usual with a question that comes in advance from our family from around the world. And then any questions that anyone here might have, we'll be happy to take those as well. Why do I find it so hard to commit? So it's really interesting because a lot of us have this fear of commitment, this sense that come कर दीजिए अभी ना. A lot of us have this fear of commitment, this sense that if I commit to something, somehow I am giving up my freedom. Somehow I'm giving up my autonomy. Somehow I'm giving up something of myself. And the dilemma is that we're actually already committed, but we don't realize it. We're committed already in our lives to our egos, to our own agendas, to our own ways of living, our own ways of moving through the world. We're already committed, but we think we're free. We don't realize actually how stuck we are. And under this guise of, oh, I don't want to commit, we think that's keeping me free. But if we're really honest, we realize, wow, look at how I live. Look at actually how committed I am to my own perspective, my own sense of how things should be, of what's right, what's wrong, of how others should be. When we're judgmental about others, this is how these people should be, this is how these people should be, this is how people should act, what I think is right. Well, to commitment hai. It's a commitment to my way of thinking. So it's critical first when we say, oh, I'm afraid of commitment, or I don't want to commit, to realize that's actually not true. You are already committed. Now the only opportunity you have is to actually commit consciously. We're already committed, but unconsciously, to the ego, to the desires, to the ways of being. When we have a choice, whether it's a career, whether it's a marriage, whether it's a lifestyle, whatever it may be, it's actually an opportunity to commit consciously rather than to be simply these unconscious slaves to that to which we've already bowed down, to our own habits, to our own attachments, to this sense of what's right, the sense of what we need, the sense of how others should be. So if you think you're one of those afraid of commitment, say to yourself, I've got this beautiful opportunity to actually finally commit to something consciously. And there's nothing to be afraid of because I'm doing it consciously. we should actually be really afraid of all of the commitments we're making unconsciously. We should be much more afraid about how committed we are to the way that our ego sees things. We should be much more afraid of how committed we are to our own identification of this is who I am, this is how I am, this is how the world should be. Because that keeps us so stuck. And that's actually what keeps us from living in freedom. A conscious commitment that I'm gonna embark on this career path, or I'm gonna take this beautiful step in my life. Well, that's not scary. That's a beautiful opportunity. And yeah, of course, there's always a little bit of trepidation, like what if I don't like it? Well, it's all right. Most things in life you can change as long as we're conscious. All the ego stuff is the stuff that's unconscious, and hence we can't change it. So to be able to commit consciously is a blessing. So whatever it is in front of you, realize, okay, an opportunity to actually put my conscious mind on something, rather than to just live as these unconscious puppets. But start small. If you've got one of these commitment phobias, start small. Go to a restaurant that's got, 200 items on the menu. Give yourself 60 seconds to decide what you want to eat for dinner. Go to a store to buy a new pair of shoes or a sweater. Give yourself 5 minutes to make a decision. No 2 hours trying on everything. Start small. Start with little things. If you didn't like the dinner, no problem. You can go somewhere else tomorrow. If you don't like the shoes, no problem. You can give them away. Get another pair. But start enjoying the opportunity to actually make conscious decisions without wallowing them, without turning them into some massive drama. And enjoy the ability to move through your life as a conscious decision maker, rather than just as a victim of circumstances, or as the one who's so stuck to your own mental way of thinking that you don't actually have any freedom. So let the commitment be a joy and opportunity, rather than a scary burden. Does anyone here have any questions? Yes.
It's kind of a funny question, but it's come from our Instagram people. It's from Cafe Latte, and she says, "Why do I need a man?"
Okay.
And she says, "Do you have a mantra or something to help me feel like I don't need another person?"
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Cafe latte. Love that. Triple soy lattes used to be a very important part of my life. So, when I was growing up in California in the 80s and early 90s, before I moved to India, there was a very, very popular bumper sticker that lots and lots and lots of people had on their car, women, on their car, that said, "A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle." And it had this picture of a fish on a bicycle. Obviously meaning really no use for them, like what's a fish going to do with a bicycle? And On the one hand, as our beautiful, beautiful sister, calling herself Cafe Latte, has asked, why do I need a man? Do I need a man? And what's the mantra to realize that I don't? Well, first of all, you don't need anyone. This idea that somehow we are half and we're waiting for our other half, that isn't true. It's a myth, I think, perpetuated actually by the makers of Hallmark cards or matchmaking services, much more than anybody on a deep spiritual level. We are not half. There's no spiritual teaching that says you come into this world as half and you need to find your other half. And until you do, you're only half. In fact, the spiritual teachings that are so beautiful are actually about this embodiment of both together. There's a beautiful, beautiful murti that I've got actually in my mandir that someone gave to me, God, almost 25 years ago. It's a murti of Krishna and Radha, but they're merged together. Usually when you see them, it's like the two of them sitting next to each other on a swing. This is actually Bhagavan Krishna's with his flute and Radha's next to him, but they're actually merging into one. And it's actually one being. And it's his arm over here and actually her arm holding the flute. And the face is half and half. And it's this beautiful image of not half and half, but of one full, complete being with the energy of both. And ultimately, that is what the spiritual practice is about. You know, I remember many, many years ago doing an interview. Someone was interviewing me about women on spiritual paths and about that divine feminine. And she was asking me about Pujya Swamiji. And she said, it's so beautiful. She said, he seems almost genderless. And I said, he's not genderless. He's genderful. That it's not that he doesn't have a gender, but rather that he has the fullness of genders. That, yeah, he's a man in the fullness of that strength. And yet he's also the Divine Mother. At the same time, in one being, those beautiful principles of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the divine father, the divine mother, and of course the divine child, all in one. And ultimately that on a spiritual practice is what we're going for. When we talk about worship of the divine feminine, for example, it's not just, women over here, we're going to worship Durga, and the men over there, you people worship Shiva. It's not that at all. It's everyone worships everyone, such that those principles of Shiv, of Shakti, come into me. It's not, I'm in a female body, therefore I'm going to embody Shakti, and you're in a male body, therefore you will embody Shiv. It's actually given to us for us all to embody both. So this idea of wholeness isn't about let me go out and find my other half so I'm whole. It's let me dive so deeply that I'm no longer stuck in my gender. It's no longer about my chromosomes or my genitalia. But it's actually about the soul, the spirit, that fullness of it all. So no, you don't need a man. You do need to experience that fullness within you. And so I know for women, a lot of us are really focused on goddess worship and embodying that mother goddess within us. And that's beautiful, we should be. But we should also be focused on worship of the divine masculine. Now, if you happen to be married, and if your spiritual practice happens to be to worship the divine in the form of your husband, no problem. You could do that. You could worship the divine masculine in him, and he could worship the divine feminine in you. And if you come together on a place of soul, spirit, consciousness union, you could experience that fullness together. But if that's not your path, well, don't worry. You actually can experience it within yourself through your spiritual practices, through worship of the principles of Bhagwan Shiv, through worship of that Purush, that sacred principle of the Purusha. So, no, you don't need a man. You can experience that fullness, and you should experience that fullness within you. What you do need is connection in life, and that absolutely does not by any means need to come in the form of a spouse. But we're wired for connection. And so if it's not going to be in the form of a spouse, don't worry. It doesn't even have to be in the form of other human beings. It can be in the divine. As long as you're able to connect with the divine on a very regular basis. And through a lot of that which you see. So can you experience the divine in a tree, in a sunset? In the stars in the night sky? In a flower blossoming? Can you experience that divine wherever you look? But also in the form of other humans is a really beautiful opportunity. That's what we have communities for, sanghas. And it's why so many people on deep spiritual practices come to ashrams, go for retreat, gather with a spiritual community. Because that connection is really beautiful. And it doesn't mean that you have to sit and have long conversations with people. On a lot of retreats, they're all silent. People never speak to each other. In some of them, they don't even look in each other's eyes. You're supposed to not even make eye contact. But simply being together in the space is very, very powerful. Simply being in the energy of the divine together is very powerful. It's why you take Arti, for example. Well, it's not like after Arti we're turning around and saying, "Hi, nice to meet you, what's your name?" Or exchanging business cards or anything. We're chanting and singing and smiling and then turning around and walking away. But that experience of being together, of being in the same energetic field, of praying together, connecting to the divine together, is deeply powerful. It's why we sit in satsang. So the mantra, it's not about you don't need anyone. It's about find those with whom you can connect, who are feeding your spiritual growth. Go to kirtan. Go to services in temple, in mandir, in church, wherever you worship. Go sit in a park and just enjoy the children playing on the swings. Go sit in nature. Sit beneath the trees. Watch the little ants build an ant hill. They build holes sometimes too, but either way. Connect with nature, the animals, the birds. Connect with others. Spend a day just, sitting in a Starbucks. And notice everyone who walks in and sort of just feel their energy. Don't get on your phone. Don't read the newspaper. Don't distract yourself. Just allow yourself to energetically connect with every being who enters. With that flow of creation. Because ultimately they're all you. One of my most beautiful meditation practices, especially these days when there's such a crowd in the arti, is just to allow my eyes to be ever so slightly open and watch the crowd on the ghat facing us, the Shankar Bhagwan ghat, to just watch this sea of people and this beautiful flow of creation. I don't know any of their names. They're too far away to even see any identifying characteristics about them. But just this flow of creation, of energy, that here we are, praying together, singing together, being together, is so powerful. So don't cut yourself off entirely. But you definitely don't need to limit yourself to one. So the mantra, there's so many, but let's stick with something simple. The mantra is Soham. It's what we chant when we do our guided group meditations. It means I am that. I am that, all of that. The sea of people. The birds, the flowers, the trees. The baby and the basket and the shopping cart in front of me as I check out at the grocery store. The divine. I'm that. I don't need one being to make me full. I'm one with all. I am all. I am that. So, hum. Let that be your beautiful mantra. When you need a little bit more convincing to the thinking mind, just remind yourself that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Does anyone else have a question? Yes. He's just going to bring you the mic.
Yeah. Hi, so sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. Is reincarnation a truth? And if yes, then does a human being gets a rebirth as a human being again?
Yes, reincarnation is true. Absolutely. Now, it's difficult from a scientific perspective because if you say, prove it to me, I'm going to have difficulty doing that. I don't have anything that I can say. It's not like, I went to Gangotri and Gomok and brought back gel from Gomok, or you go somewhere and you bring back a souvenir, or I could pull out my phone and say, look, 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 here it is, me and my past birth. But we do have scientific evidence. We've got lots and lots of people who remember their past births, and some of them in ways in which it's actually been proven. Pujya Swamiji has met young children. This is going back 50 years, long before there was Google or computers even. Young children who remembered everything about a past life in a totally different village, where they actually went and verified that what they remembered was exactly true, like in that almirah was something, and their parents still were living, and they had died a tragic death, reincarnated in a different village. So it's actually been proven, we know that. It's also something, of course, that our scriptures tell us. And we do take that which our scriptures teach us as truth. As far as humans coming back as humans, well, the whole way that reincarnation works is it's part of the cycle of karma. Reincarnation is just us getting a new body. It's like if you say, I'm going to go on a journey from Delhi to Paris, okay? Or Delhi to Mongolia. Like, let's go as far as you can in a car without needing a boat or a tunnel. Whatever direction you go. Well, at some point along the way, it's likely you might need a new car. Especially if you start with one that isn't brand new or in fantastic shape. Now, you're still on the same journey. You just get a new car. Now, are you going to get the exact same kind you had before? Well, in that case, it's up to your conscious mind. You get to decide. Maybe now is the time for the hilly journey. So I'm going to get myself a 4x4, big SUV. Then I'm in a place where it's just flat. Maybe I've managed to get myself into America and I'm driving through, Kansas. Well, you don't need a 4x4, so maybe you got a little sports car there. Get through as quickly as you can. You're gonna get vehicles that are best able to serve you based on the part of your journey that you now need to do on your ultimate journey. Now, our ultimate journey is to the divine. God realization, self-realization, moksha, enlightenment. Whatever you call it. That's the ultimate journey. Now, depending on how quickly we get there, you could get there in this life. This body will be enough. But if you don't, and you need to come back, Well, you're going to get a body that's most conducive to whatever now you need to learn and experience. But all of that is based on what you do in this life. Your karma, your actions, are that which determine your destiny. So, could you create a situation where you come back as an earthworm? Probably. Where the universe is just like, you know what? Square one. I imagine you could. I think it's probably more likely that you would come back perhaps again as a human, but in a very challenging situation to go through what you need to go through. But absolutely we come back. I mean, there's all sorts of stories in the scriptures, right, of humans reincarnating as animals based on choices they make, based on decisions, based on how they get stuck, and therefore what they take birth as again. So, if you want your next birth to be as a human, watch your karma. And then, of course, the question even becomes, well, if you want your next birth to be fully conscious, like you get to decide the type of car, well then, work on getting enlightened in this life so that you get to come back next time fully consciously. So that rather than like a prisoner in the jail who's stuck, you get to come back like the jailer who says, this is what I would like to do. This is my chosen profession. When I want to leave, I can leave. But for the meantime, I've chosen to be here. I've got work to do to help these people. Beautiful. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
The question was from yesterday's session. Like when we serve, it was like we should serve, we should continuously serve. But if the other person or someone actually they're taking advantage, then how to deal with that?
We should continue to repeat the first part of your question.
It's always that we should serve, again
yes.
serve, continue serve.
Yes.
But when you know the other person is taking advantage, then what you should do?
So yesterday we were speaking about giving and giving and giving and serving as our dharma. And so he says, well, what if the person you're serving is taking advantage of you? Then what? Well, there's two pieces to that. The first piece is that's their karma. What you are doing is your karma. What they are doing is their karma. You have to answer for your karma. They have to answer for their karma. We are not here responsible for someone else's karma. So it's not about, well, you're taking advantage of me, therefore I'm going to teach you a lesson. Right? How many of us think, मैं सिखाऊंगी, मैं सिखा दूंगा, मैं दिखा दूंगा, I will show them. Well, that's not our job. We're not here in charge of someone else's karma. We're here in charge of our own. And our karma, our actions, are meant to be in service of our dharma. It's a beautiful little mantra Pujya Swamiji gave me right in the very, very beginning when I first came. He said, here's the way to live. engage yourself in karma, in action, under the shade of Dharma, with an awareness of Brahma. Engage yourself in karma, under the shade of Dharma, with the awareness of Brahma, of God. So keep doing your actions. Keep acting, keep acting. At that point, I had not yet read the Bhagavad Gita. So I didn't know that Bhagavan Krishna makes it so clear in the Gita that in fact we can't not act. We're always acting. The only choice we have is that action conscious or is it unconscious? Is it karma yoga or is it unconscious action? I remember growing up in California, you'd hear a lot of people say, I'm not a human doing, I'm a human being. I need to do less and be more. And of course what that meant was, I need to work less and lie on the beach more. I need to work less and drink tea or pina coladas or whatever it was more. Now, what the spiritual teaching is you're always acting, you're always doing. Lying on a beach is doing. Sipping a pina colada is doing. You're always doing. The question is, how can you be while you are doing? Meaning, how can that which I am doing be done so consciously, with such awareness, that I am doing, but I'm being? It's like that beautiful line in our prayers here in the morning. Mukho me ho Ram Nam, Ram Seva Hat me. God's work is in your hands, but your lips are chanting God's name. I am being while doing. I am doing, but I'm doing consciously. So you have to keep acting. Engage yourself in karma always. Not 9 to 5. Not 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Not every day but you're off. Engage yourself in karma, but under the shade of Dharma. So the first piece is we are always acting, always serving. That's what karma yoga is it's when action becomes yoga. When that action is under this shade of Dharma. It's according to my Dharma, and it's bringing me closer to true yoga, true union. And it's arising out of yoga, out of an awareness of our oneness. So as I serve, it has to be under this shade of my Dharma. Now we've got universal Dharma, which is be kind, be generous, be compassionate. But then we've also got individual Dharma. And this is where that being taken advantage of, peace, comes in. Because if someone is taking advantage of you, on the karmic level, that's not my responsibility. That's theirs. I'm serving. People take advantage of me, they've got to answer for that. I only answer for the fact that I am serving in alignment with Dharma. However, in my individual Dharma, I have to realize that I did not come onto earth with fulfill someone else's agenda stamped on my rear end. That's not actually why we each take birth. It's not, oh, you want me to do this? Okay, I guess that's my dharma. Oh, you don't want to have to face your own issues, your own fears, your own challenges, and so you're going to have me keep dancing, doing whatever you want, however you want it, whenever you want it, just so that you don't have to face your own internal lack of peace. Well, that's not your dharma. Our dharma is not to prevent others from having to do their work. And sometimes simply dancing according to everyone's tune is actually that which is protecting them. We think we're protecting them, when really we're simply preventing them from doing the work that they need to do. If I can make you do everything I want, whenever I want it, however I want it, well, I never have to face not having things happen according to my will. I never have to learn surrender. I never have to learn to let things go. I never have to learn humility. I never have to learn to adjust, because you keep doing whatever I want. And all that means is I'm going to learn all those things in my next birth. Because at some point we have to learn them. You don't get enlightened based on the number of people you've scared into doing your bidding. It's not, oh, everyone does what she says so she doesn't have a fit. Great, give this one enlightenment. So you've got to find that space within you. And there's no proper equation, you'll know. What are you doing that is really karma yoga? And what are you doing that's simply preventing someone else from actually experiencing what they are supposed to experience? I mean, we deal with this a lot with parents, with adult children who just don't want to get a job, who just, are really happy to live at home and let mom and dad take care of them well into, forget their 20s, well into their 30s, as they sort of figure out what they want to do with life. Now, on the one hand, you could say, well, that's really loving of the parents to, keep supporting them. It's beautiful. Generous, loving, caring, karma yoga. But on the other hand, you'd say, you know what? At some point, this kid really needs to take responsibility for their life. They really need to figure out how they're going to be a contributing member to society. And you continuing to simply provide everything for them is preventing that from happening. So that's where we have to figure out, where am I helping, serving, and where am I simply enabling someone else's dysfunction? So engage yourself in karma under that shade of dharma with the awareness of Brahma. That whatever we're doing, the awareness that I'm not the doer. I'm just an instrument. Nimitta matram. I'm just this instrument in God's hands. And I'm so blessed to be able to be used by the divine as that instrument. So if you take that as your mantra, It'll help you figure out where to draw the line. Because spirituality doesn't mean you become a doormat. Giving and giving and serving doesn't mean you leave yourself out of the picture. When we say serve all, well, surely you are in that all. Have compassion for all, well, surely you are in that all. But we forget that. So bring you back into the equation. The divine you, the you with the awareness of Brahma. And then the right way to move will arise. You'll feel it, you'll know it. Beautiful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. A beautiful morning and day to our family joining us from all over the world online. And so much love to you all.